Hey, what's up, everybody? Been a while. Sorry that I hadn't really had time to concentrate on getting any filming done for the past several months. Life's just been crazy. But got an opportunity to sit down and have a fairly quiet house today, and thought maybe it'd be a good time to put out a new video. A little background here. It's probably been 7-8 years ago. I was cruising around the Bushcraft USA forum and found a step-by-step tutorial on carving a wood spirit. At the time, it seemed kind of interesting, so I grabbed my pocket knife and went out in the backyard and cut a limb out of a cedar tree and gritted my teeth and cussed my way through getting this thing. My wife is a Christmas junkie, and I thought it seemed like a good idea to turn that one into a Santa Claus, and she really seemed to like it. As a matter of fact, it still hangs on our tree every year. Not my favorite piece of work that I've ever put out, but hey, made her happy. Since then, I've really gotten hooked on carving wood spirits. I know I tend to turn out a lot more caricatures, but wood spirits are one of my favorite things to produce. So I thought we'd sit down and carve one today. All right, so what we got here is a piece of a sweet gum sapling. For those of you who don't know what sweet gum is, it's a native species. It's an early successional species. If you, especially in the southeastern U.S., if you go into any thicket or old field, I guarantee you're going to find these. If you note the heavily furrowed bark here, a lot of times it'll have wings that grow way off of that bark. And of course, the most common indicator are in the fall, it puts on these seed pods that are covered in spikes, sweet gum balls. I started carving these really because Alan Goodman directed me towards it. If you carve them green, they carve like a dream. Let these things dry, and you will need a chainsaw and a chisel to make any headway on them. I don't have any qualms about cutting sweet gum saplings. They really serve no benefit. There's no timber value. Most people don't even want to cut it for firewood because it doesn't split worth a crap. And the wildlife benefits are minimal at best. So I really like carving walking sticks out of these. What I've got here is about the rough size that I would cut for a walking stick. This one might be a little on the larger side. About 1 3/4 inches in diameter. Usually I'll aim for about 1.5 inches, 1 1/4 to 1.5 inches or so. I cut this one a few days ago. And you can see a little bit of paint residue there. I sealed the ends with paint, just some old paint I have in my basement. I know Alan says he likes to rub the ends with a potato. I've tried that. My results were mixed. I did have some splitting and checking on the ends. I would recommend, if you want to carve these for a walking stick, cut your piece a little bit longer than you think you'll need. I like to cut mine probably about 1 foot longer than my finished walking stick will be. That way, if the ends do check or split any, you can salvage it. And really, it's a walking stick. If it splits and checks, as long as it's not too bad. It adds a little character to it. But I like to control that, or at least make that as minimal as possible. So I just want to get through the bark here, get down to the wood. I'm using this little Flexcut Skew knife. Really and truly, I don't use this knife a ton. I wouldn't use your really nice detail knife for this. The bark is a little rough on edges, and of course it can have some dirt and debris and stuff accumulated in there, like a lot like carving cottonwood bark. So use a knife that you don't care if it gets a little scratched up. I'm just getting myself something to work with here. Of course, speaking of Alan, I know his biggest influence was Tom Wolfe, and I think he has told me that he carved sweet gum because that's what Tom Wolfe told him to carve. I've also carved tulip poplar walking sticks. That does really well. Same thing, I'll cut saplings. Tulip poplar does have some timber value, but they're also an early successional species. So if you find a newly cut over or an old field that's growing up, I promise you can find some tulip poplar. Again, at least if you're in the southeastern U.S. Those of you out in the west, western U.S., I've never tried an aspen walking stick. I know that's a very, very popular species to use for them. I would like to get my hands on some aspen sticks at some point and give it a shot, but I'm kind of limited to what I can go out my back door and grab for the most part. So we're just, setting up the stage to get a face in here right now. We want to get that roughly 45-degree angle, and we're going to tuck the face in here. One thing you do want to check for whenever you start setting these up, look around the stick. As you can see, there's a pretty substantial knot right there. So you want to kind of avoid things like that. On these green pieces, if you got a small pin knot, it's usually not a big deal. I can carve right through those without any trouble. But a larger knot, one, it's going to be a lot harder on your blades. Two, that's going to be a spot that's prone to check and crack in the future as it dries out. So I try to avoid those as much as possible. At least I don't want to have it somewhere where if it does form a crack, it's not going to be going right through the middle of the face on these things. All right, so we've got things kind of roughed out here. So the first thing I want to do is get a nose in here. I like on these things to aim or steer more towards, somewhat caricature type style. I like exaggerated features. I don't carve these in the vein of an Alec Lacoste or someone like that really does a lot of highly realistic sculpture. I enjoy making them somewhat realistic, but almost like a caricature. So one thing I really like on these is a big, broad schnoz. I like, a big, wide, heavy nose. Just seems to really be an attention grabber on the finished piece. So I'm taking, this is I think it's a 1/2 inch soft V, and I'm just clearing out some space underneath here. I don't want to don't want to go too deep just yet, because I want to leave plenty of meat in here for a mustache and beard and whatnot later. But I want to get the spot for that nose somewhat indicated. And I'm going to go right above here and just start laying this wood back a little bit for the bridge of the nose. Again, I'm kind of keeping that 45-degree angle, and I'm may end up having to cut a little bit more wood away up here, or bark away rather. That'll be fine. Hope you guys can see what I'm doing. It's kind of hard with the camera stand I've got here to get a piece this large in the frame, but hopefully we can make it work. All right, I made some adjustments here, so maybe I can have a little bit more room to work and you guys can see the process a little better. So just going back to setting up the bridge of that nose in. And we don't have to worry too much about keeping everything even and symmetrical at this point. We will clean a lot of that up later. I just want to kind of get the indications of where things are going to go. There we go. Finally got it to cut loose. All right. So let's get our rough 45-degree angle back in here. The reason I'm using this shorter stick is really just convenience. I had cut this piece with the intention of making a walking stick, but I knew for filming purposes, trying to get that entire stick in the frame with the camera setup I've got, which for those of you who don't know, I don't have a camera. I'm using my phone to film all of these. Trying to set that up where I could work and not have that, 5-6 feet of stick in the way was going to be tough. So I just went downstairs and took off a chunk of one of the sticks and I'm using it for this video. So we've got the beginnings of our nose in here. Put in a rough center line. And then I want to get some eye channels going. I actually want to bring those down just a hair. And on these, this initial cut is just going to give an indication of where that eye channel goes. I'm not aiming for the max depth here. Now, I will, on these, make a pretty deep eye channel. I want those features to be exaggerated. So I want those eyes to be deep set. I want a heavy brow ridge once this is all said and done. But I need room to get the eyes in first. So I'm just going to kind of give an indication there. For doing that, I'm using, this is a 5/8 inch number 9, fairly broad. This is the biggest gouge that I have. I would actually maybe recommend a little bit larger if you have access to that. Then I'm going to use that same gouge, kind of lay it on its side, start opening up this eye channel a little bit and shaping the bridge of that nose. The thing that I like about these wider number 9s is you actually have multiple tools in one. And, you know, by how you manipulate that edge, you can get, you know, anywhere from a 9 right in the middle, maybe a 6 or 7 sweep off to the edge, and, you know, all the way out on these wings, you've got a pretty good number 3 sweep there. And you can use that to open up these eyes and kind of set the bridge of the nose in there. Do the same, repeat the same process on the other side. Today is Tuesday. I think I cut this on Saturday, and already it's not hard to carve, but it's a little tougher than it would have been if I'd started on Saturday. Matter of fact, I've got a few more sticks downstairs that I probably need to get cranking on if I'm going to make walking sticks out of them, because if I let that set for too much longer, I'm not going to enjoy the carving process. And I don't have, I guess you would say, a dedicated process, you know, a step-by-step, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. I kind of just tend to jump around wherever I see a spot that needs some attention. So that's what you guys are going to see me do here. Again, we're just getting that basic shape in at this point. You know, some rough marks in here aren't a big deal. But as you can see, I've got the beginnings of a nose. I've got beginnings of the eye channels. You can kind of see where the brow ridge is going to start up there. Kind of like where all that sets for the time being. I'm going to clean a little bit out right here on either side. So there we go. I'm fairly happy with how that's looking. One thing I do want to check repeatedly also is the profile. You know, I want to make sure that that looks good. When I first started carving, I didn't pay any attention to the profile whatsoever. And it showed. Here recently, or in the past couple years, I've really been a lot more observant of what that profile looks like on these faces that I'm doing. So whether that be a Woodspirit or a Santa ornament or whatever, I don't want it to look right just from the front. Getting the profile right, meaning, you know, the bridge of the nose and the forehead being sloped at roughly the same angle, the inside corner of the eye being the deepest part of the face, the dental mound being out in front of the eye channel and whatnot. Things like that, if you're aware of them initially and get it set up right, it makes a big difference in the end product. So I'm clearing some space up here for the forehead on this guy. And again, I want a nice heavy brow ridge. And I like, you know, big bushy eyebrows on these guys. That's my personal taste. Okay, do what you want with it. And experiment. This is a piece of wood that was free 99. I have absolutely nothing invested in it. And if I screw this up royally, I will just chuck it in the brush pile I've got in the backyard, and it will become some rabbit and bird habitat. And really and truly, I'm not overly particular about the quality basswood that I purchase. I don't enjoy fighting my way through a piece that's not going in the direction that I want it to. If I can see that things have gone awry and I can't salvage it, I've got a solo stove fire pit outside, and that piece becomes kindling. You can kind of see where things are heading now. I'm fairly happy with where the nose and the eyes are set up. I like the profile on it. So I'm gonna start shaping underneath the nose here and setting up room to give him a mustache. I'm glad my dog knocked and decided he wanted back in, because I realized I had screwed something up and I've missed a few minutes of filming here. So what I have done is kind of set the tops of the wings of his nose in. And I don't want to go too deep with that just yet. I'm just giving an indication of where they'll go. And I've began sorry for the background noise. My dog doesn't eat when he's fed. He just kind of grazes throughout the day, and he's decided that right now would be a good time for him to get a bite. So I'm beginning to set up where I want that mustache to go. So I'm going to go right up above the wing of that nostril and set in that smile line. I don't know what the official term for it is. You know, if you want an anatomy lesson along with a carving lesson, Dave Stetson's your man. I know nothing about anatomy, so I'm going to continue to refer to them as the smile line. And I want to get a little depth in there. And I'm going to begin setting up where this mustache is going to go. So I'm going to use this soft V and start putting that in. One thing that we all need to bear in mind when it comes to hair, beards, mustaches, whatever, is to avoid straight lines. I know when I first started carving, when it got time to do a beard, I grabbed that V tool and just started digging away and putting in lines like so. And now that I've got a few hundred of these under my belt, I look back and realize that does not look the least bit realistic. For me, hair looks better when we give just kind of the impression of the hair. I'm not going to look to go in here and carve single individual strands or anything. I just want to give you the impression of how it's flowing. So that's going to be the outside of the mustache. I'm going to come down the center line here. And this is always, for me, a fairly hard spot to make somewhat uniform. You know, don't get too bogged down in making it exact. If he's got a big old flowing mustache like so, I promise you it's not going to hang down exactly the same on both sides. And really and truly, we're not anywhere near as symmetrical as we think. Go give yourself a good look in the mirror, and you'll notice that one side of your nose maybe is a little bit higher. You've got one ear that hangs down a little bit lower. Your eyes aren't even all the way across. Like, it's not a big deal. Don't major in the minors here. I can promise you, unless things are really out of sorts, absolutely no one is going to notice, because it's going to give it a little more character, and it's going to give it a little more realism. Just smoothing these cheeks out a little bit now. Kind of double check, make sure I got things where I want them. You see that I'm actually going to kind of check on this. So I don't use dividers for a lot. You know, I'm not going to be too worried if things are a fraction of an inch off. But I could tell that that side was a good bit wider than the other. So I'm just going to clean that up a bit. I'm actually going to change this up a hair. kind of bring it down like so. So again, I'm going back to that soft V. And this first pass, I'm just clearing out some wood. I'm going to end up making this a lot deeper in the end. Right now, I just need one to set an indicator of where that mustache is going to go. To get a little bit of this wood out of the way for later. And as I'm doing this mustache, I kind of want to round this over. That was another problem I had when I first started carving, is I made that mustache sit flat on the face. But that it should follow that dental mound. You know, since we're using a round stick, it's a little bit easier than, say, if you're carving this on a block of wood. You'd have to build some of that roundness in. You know, I've got it here to work with, but just be mindful of that. You know, a mustache follows the contours of the face, especially, you know, a big heavy mustache like this. And I don't know how much of this you can see, but this stick isn't perfectly straight. It's got a little bit of wiggle to it. And I like that when I'm doing these wood spirits. You know, I want some of the natural features to be incorporated into the finished piece. If you want, you know, if you wanted to get a dowel and do the same thing and have it, you know, a nice perfectly straight piece in the end, that is absolutely fine. But I like the fact that this finished piece is going to reflect what was naturally occurring out in the woods just a couple of days ago. All right, so I got a lot of bulk removal done here. I'm gonna switch up my knives here just a little bit. Something I've got a little more control with. And I'm gonna start putting some depth underneath that mustache. This is one spot on these that I really like to get some depth. Throw some extra shadows in there. It just really lends itself to the overall look of the finished piece. Now I'm gonna take this V-gouge and start digging away underneath here. For those of you who did see Alan Goodman's presentation on the International Association of Wood Carvers a few weeks ago, this is a spot that he used a reciprocating handpiece on a Fordham tool to really dig into. I have one of those, but since I'm carving in the dining room, I didn't figure that was, I didn't think it was a good idea to bring that into the mix on this piece. And, you know, I know many of you probably don't have one of those. So It makes life easier. You know, power tools, there is nothing in the world wrong with them. I enjoy using hand tools more, but sometimes breaking out a power tool means that you can keep carving on a piece, whereas hand tools mean that piece is destined for the fire pit because you just cannot cut it. And again, I'm just bouncing around here. You know, I've never been diagnosed, but I think anybody who knows me can agree that I have ADHD, and if something catches my eye, well, that's just the direction I'm going to go in at that time. You can make these mustaches as long or as short as you like. I personally like long flowing mustaches on these guys. And I like to make them look like, you know, if you've got a mustache that's that long, it's going to look, or the wind is going to blow it this way and that. So give it that look. Make these lines wavy. Make them look like this is a haggard old wood spirit that's been stuck in this tree for a millennia. I think many of us carve wood spirits without knowing a lot of the folklore and mythology behind them, but I highly recommend checking that out sometime if you enjoy them. It's a pretty neat bit of European mythology. I kind of got the beginnings of a mustache in here now. Got him a nose, and I actually, now that I look at it, I want to set the bridge of that nose back a little bit more. So we can see the profile here now. I can kind of start rounding things over. Now, I still got the eye channels in here, even though I have set that back. And the next step I'm getting ready to do is going to set those eye channels in even more. But I want to clean up some things. Now, I'm fairly happy with the nose placement, so I'm gonna go into this corner and do that triangle chip cut to get a little extra depth and another shadow in there. I want to be careful here though. Don't go into the back side of the nose. So be mindful of the angle you've got that knife sitting at when you make that cut. We can round this nose over a little bit more now. Same thing on the other side here. So I want to make sure this knife is angled away from the nose there. I'm just gonna push it straight in. I'm gonna come in back here, push it straight in, and then I'm gonna come on that third side and just release that chip. And I can kind of round the nose over some. And this nose is nowhere near finished yet. I still got quite a bit I'm wanting to do to it, but we got the beginnings of one that I'm happy with. I'm gonna take that big number 9 and go right inside on the inside corner of that eyeball and get some depth there. I was gonna push the bridge of that nose out a little bit more since I cut it down. And we're gonna get those eyes set up correctly. Our eyes are a sphere that sit inside of our head, but they sit, whereas this plane of the face is slightly angled, those eyes set flush or flat. So we want to be sure that this inside corner here has plenty of depth. That'll help us get that round eyeball in there in the end. So I'm gonna go to a slightly smaller gouge now and just keep working on that corner. So as you can see, when I pop that chip out, I got the beginnings of a little bit of a knot there. No big deal. That knot was there before I started cutting, and it'll be there after I'm done. It'll just be a feature on the finished piece. I'll shape up the bridge of that nose just a little bit. There we go. So there's our profile. I've got fairly good depth. I got good depth in this eye. This side needs a little bit more attention. That's better. That nose can, the bridge of the nose can be rounded over a little bit more now. There we go. So we can see I've got a nice heavy brow ridge here. I've got room for those eyes to be put in. Cheeks are still a little rough. That's fine. I'm going to clean those up here in just a little bit. Got the nose mostly done. And I've got the beginnings of a mustache and a little bit of a beard here. So let's give this guy some eyes. I want to come right on the inside corner there and put a couple dots. Now if you notice, these eyes are really going to be pinched tight together. Again, that's just my personal preference. You know, I know the general rule of thumb is our face is 5 eyeballs wide and there's an eyeballs width between them. But this is just one of those exaggerated features that I like putting into a piece, is make those eyes pinched together pretty tight. And I'm going to make the eyeballs themselves, you know, oversized. So let's make the beginnings of those eyeballs. And this isn't super critical, but this is one thing that I like to check with the dividers. Just make sure they're roughly the same width. And this one is a little bit smaller, so we can bring that out just a hair more. And then on the bottom side here, I want big, heavy bags underneath these eyes. You know, if you're carving yourself a jolly Santa, maybe don't go with this approach. But on these, I think it really looks good in the final product. So this is a, I don't know, maybe a 1/4 inch U-gouge. I'll be honest with you guys, for the most part, I have no idea what size of any of the gouges or anything I own are. I just grab the one that looks appropriate for the job that I'm about to do. So again, on this inside corner here, we're working on getting that depth in there. And we're laying the foundation of those eyeballs. Got a piece there it's not wanting to turn loose, but if you keep after it enough, it'll come out. So again, I'm gonna on this opposite side, and really and truly, I did this backwards, kind of a bad habit. But for those of us that are right-handed, if you'll start on really the character's right eye, but as you're looking at it, the left eye, if you'll start on that side first, it makes life a lot easier for you. You can, when you come to work on this other side, you can actually see this side, and helps to keep things fairly even. So I'm gonna follow that line all the way around here. And on this outside corner, I'm just gonna kind of flick it out. Do the same thing on this other eye. We'll follow that line right around. Boom. This U-gouge could use a little bit of attention. It's not unusable as it is, but it ain't the sharpest tool that I've got by any means. So there's the upper side. I'm going to set these bags in now. Same thing, I'm just gonna follow that line to this outside corner, and we'll clear some of that wood out right there. we go. I want to take a little bit thinner detail knife. This is a Badger State. I think it's about 1.5 inches detail. I really like this knife because of this thin profile. You can make those swoop cuts, and the backside of the spine of the blade doesn't grab on you, so you can get in and out of those swoop cuts really easily with it. This is a knife that I would recommend you picking up if you don't have one. So I'm just going around kind of shaping up that eyeball. I want to get some roundness to it. So where that center line is, I want to work from that center line toward the edges just to get that round shape. And you're gonna have a few of what I call little hangnails that want to stick in the edges. That's fine. We'll clean that up here in just a minute. All right, so got the upper side pretty well rounded off. I'm actually going to come on this one and get just a little bit more depth right here. All right, so let's do the bottom side here. Don't go too deep on this bottom side. We want those bags to have some weight, some mass to them. You know, again, this is a haggard looking old Spirit. You know, those bags should be heavy. At least that is my personal preference. All right, so we got them pretty well rounded over. I'm gonna switch back to this small V-gouge and just kind of go around and clean some of that up. The one thing I'm doing here is laying that gouge, or that V-gouge over. So I'm kind of skinning the top of that eyelid and cleaning that up some more. There we go. All right. So there's where our eyes are. Actually need to do the same thing on the bottom side here. Clean some of that out. And this isn't a step that I do commonly on caricatures and stuff, but on these guys, I think, you know, those sharp angular features really make a difference in the overall look of the the finished piece. All right. So let's clean these cheeks up a bit. I just want to grab right underneath that eye. Be careful not to cut into the eye itself. So those cheekbones are going to lay kind of right in here. So that's what that is the area we want to be the high spot on as far as the profile goes. So I'm rounding back toward the eye and down towards that smile line. And that cheekbone, you know, unless you have really strong features, it's not, you know, it shouldn't be a hard line there. And that's just kind of a general reference. So there we go. Still got some fuzzies wanting to hang out in here. See if I can clean that out just a touch. If you run across a little knot or something like that, a lot of times what will happen is as you're carving, you will end up cutting completely through it. So it may or may not be there by the time you get done with the piece. There we go. This eye here needs to be brought up just a hair to match the other side. That's a little better. All right. So there's the beginnings of our eye. Now what I want to do is kind of reestablish that center line, like so. And I'm going to take, this 3/8 inch, number 9. Don't go too deep here. I'm just going to swipe right across that line. If you can see there, that kind of gives me a dividing line between the top and bottom eyelid. So I want to kind of draw a line in that roughly follows that. And on these eyes, I'm just gonna do it's a very simple three-point type eye. So I wanna go in that corner, get some good depth in there. If you can see, like, I'm really sticking that knife tip in. Then I'm gonna go on the corner of the upper eyelid and do the same thing. Get some good depth. And I'm gonna connect those two dots right on the inside, or right along the bridge of the nose there. And I'm gonna take those chips out. Some of you are probably a better carver than I am. You can get these chips to release the first go round. A lot of times for me, it takes a pass or two to be able to get them to turn loose. So there's the inside of that eye. Let's do the same thing on the other side. So again, nice deep stab. Didn't want to turn loose for me. Nice deep stab. I'm gonna go right along the edge of the nose, connect those two. And then I'm going to relieve those cuts. There we go. Now we're gonna go to the outside corner. Nice deep stab. Nice deep stab. Come in and relieve that chip. Pop it right out. See here, I had a little spot where the grain was unsupported. I chipped out off a little bit of the eyelid. Luckily, it's salvageable. There's something to be mindful of when you're making these cuts is you're going to have a fairly thin spot of unsupported grain along those edges. Be aware of it. You know, it's a spot that is easy to blow out. I'm trying to get my thumb out of the way for you guys. All right. So now it's just a game of connect the dots. I want to take that knife and that's the one thing I don't want to do. I want to ride right around where I drew those lines. This is a spot where you don't want to go too deep. Just make a little stop cut there. Work your way around. Like so. Do the same thing on this side. Let's see. Kind of want to straighten up this eye just a touch. And there's that I don't know what HD is, but I've got 80 of them. See a little spot just wanting to hang up in there. Clean that out. And one thing about carving this green wood is you'll get a lot of little chatter marks from your tools. Really and truly, they're not a big deal, but I do like to go back in the end and kind of smooth that out a little bit. Apologize. Those of you who have issues with sounds blowing right into the microphone here, but so there we go. Now let's give them some pupils. I'm gonna grab my, that's not it. Yeah. My 4mm dockyard. And to me, these guys are more interesting if you don't put the pupils just dead center, have them looking straight ahead. I like to have them looking off to one side or the other. And you can kind of play along with the whatever flow you've got, you know. It's nice on a finished piece to I guess to have the attention. We don't want all of the features more heavily weighted to one side or the other. Kind of balance those things out. So with this one, you know, things are naturally flowing off to this side below the eyes. So above or from the eyes up, I want to throw a little bit more weight over to this side. So I'm going to take that 4mm gouge. I'm gonna go straight in. So I'm gonna basically set it right on top of that bottom eyelid. And then I wanna aim. And this is a spot that take your time with, just kind of work it up through there. And I wanna go right underneath that upper eyelid. See if we can get that chip to pop out. Like so. You can always do this in in a couple of passes. If you're not careful, you will blow right through that upper eyelid. So take your time, let the tool do the work. And I want to get underneath that eyelid so that there's a little more depth right there. So one thing that's really nice when you make these eyes kind of offset like this, you know, if I were to try to put them dead center, if I were off on either side just a little bit, it would be really apparent. When you put them off to the side like this, it's not nearly as noticeable if they're slightly out of whack. So again, I'm going kind of underneath that upper eyelid. Like so. And I've got some spots just not wanting to turn loose under there. Take a couple of passes, and I can see in this corner right here now, I've got a little spot that didn't get cleaned out. So there. And you can stop right there. That'll be fine. But I actually like putting a little indicator of an iris outside here as well. Like so. So for that, I'm gonna grab, this is a 1.5 millimeter dockyard U-gouge. And I'm gonna do the same thing. Go right underneath that upper eyelid. But actually I'm going to, on this one, I'm gonna flip it over and do the same thing going underneath the edge of that lower eyelid. And just get that chip to pop out. This isn't a necessary step, but when it comes to carvings, shadows are what make a difference. So to me, any extra little shadow I can throw in there is going to make my piece stand out versus another one. And I don't compete a ton, but I do enter the Charlotte Woodcarvers show every year. And I don't make my pieces with the intention of competing, but competing does push me to make the piece as good as I possibly can. Like, good enough just isn't good enough. All right. So we've got his eyes. We've got most of his major features in there pretty well at this point. So let's hit those little details. Clean this up just a little bit more. There we go. He needs some nostrils. And I like, you know, these are heavy, exaggerated features on this guy. So I'm gonna give him a big old set of nostrils with this 5/8 inch number 9. There we go. And now we can kind of clean up the nose a little bit. So I'm gonna take that knife right around there. I'm gonna get some extra depth in that cut. Like so. This was not as bad. Just clean it up just a hair. And then I'm going to take this number 3, kind of clean up this cheek. Again, this guy shouldn't have big chubby cheeks like a Santa. So I want those cheeks to be somewhat sunken in. Same thing on the other side here. And just clean that out with a V-gouge. There we go. Clean up the tip of the nose just a little bit. And you can tell through the oxidation of the wood and just my carving glove being dirty, like this piece is picking up a lot of just dingy look to it. That is not a big deal. When I get done carving, I'm going to take it over to the kitchen sink and give it a good scrubbing with some dish soap. All right. Now it's time for some hair. Actually, I'm going to put that snot trough in there again. I know nothing about anatomy. I don't know what the official name for that feature is. I'm just gonna call it a snot trough. So for hair, we want to think flow. We want these lines to be kind of soft S curves, nice and wavy. Something like so. I'm going to start off by using this this soft V. And really what I'm doing with it is just kind of setting the foundation. So these, I'm not carving hairs, I'm carving groups of hair, kind of clumps. If you look at somebody from a distance, especially if they have good hair, I do not, but if they have good hair, what you notice about it is not how each hair lays, is how those groups of hair kind of work with each other. Kind of realize I'm getting out of frame here for you guys. Sorry about that. And I'm not following those pencil marks at all. I was just kind of giving an indication there. Of what I was going to do with it. So that's the starting point for his mustache. The beard, I'm going to do the same way. Lazy lazy S curves. But for the beard, I'm going to get a little bit more depth with this part. This tool could use a little work too. There we go. That's kind of where it's at now. And while I've got this soft V in my hand, I'm gonna split those eyebrows. This is a tip I picked up from a Dwayne Gosnell video. You know, I started off with a center line, but as you can see, as I worked, things have kind of gotten off kilter there. Matter of fact, I'm just gonna clear that out of the way. So what I wanna do is take that soft V, I wanna set it right on the tip of the nose and run right up the bridge. And just put me a mark in, and I can kind of double check. Kind of like where that's at. So I'll go back and get a little bit more depth right there. And then I can clean up the top of those eyebrows by laying that soft V on its side, like so. And I'm gonna bring those on around. Again, I like those heavy features. I want big, bushy eyebrows here. There we go. And we can go in right above with our knife. Clean that up. And on this one, I don't think I'm gonna put any hair on top. But if you wanted to, it'd be the same thing as the beard and mustache. Just nice, soft, lazy S curves there. All right, I'm gonna grab, this is a Swiss made, I think it's a 5mm number 9. I'm gonna use it in a very similar fashion to what I did with the soft V. You know, I'm not thinking, or I'm thinking about flow as I'm carving these in. Just lazy S curves. You can kind of see what the extra shadows that throws in on that mustache. And I like the mustache and the beard to have slightly different texture. Just for extra interest, and I think it makes the final piece look a little bit better. Repeat the process on the other side. You don't need to worry about trying to match things line by line. You don't even have to worry too much about getting the same amount of cuts on one side or the other. Like nobody is going to notice that. I'm gonna give a little bit more depth in those nostrils right there. At least on this side. There we go. And then for eyebrows, I'm going to use that same Swiss made veiner. Just like so. And then on beard, I might grab a V-tool, make a couple of heavier cuts through here. Just to break things up a little bit more and add some extra depth in a spot or two. But to me, these look better if you go easy with that. All right, so I'm gonna take this guy, clean him up a little bit, and be back here in just a little while. All right, so I'm back. Got it all cleaned up. You can tell it made a big difference in the overall look there. Got rid of some of that grime and dust and debris and dirt and whatnot. So I'm ready for the final part of this project. What I've got here is called Pentacryl. It is a green wood stabilizer. I think it's largely used by wood turners. You know, guys, when they're roughing in bowls and whatnot out of green wood. It's an oil-based product. I don't know what type of oil, but I just want to give this thing a good lathering with this. It really does make a difference as far as the checking and splitting goes in the final product. And really and truly, a lot of times what, see if we can get that out. Be right back. So I couldn't find my long needle nose pliers to get that brush out, so I just poured a little bit on and used a paper towel. Since this is an oil-based product, if you use a paper towel or a rag or anything, be sure to dispose of those properly. Don't just leave them, don't chuck them in your trash can or leave them laying around your house unless you have a very good insurance policy. But that's the finished product. Hope you guys enjoyed it. Hope somebody learned something. If you did like it, You know, I'd really appreciate it if you gave me a like, subscribe, shared this video out. I know I have not been good at turning out the videos. I'm going to try my best to work on that. I got a couple more, several more projects in mind that I would like to share with you guys. But if I know that it is if it is beneficial, if people are enjoying it, it will encourage me to do a lot more of that. So give me a like, share, subscribe, ring that bell. It makes a difference in the algorithm. You know, I'd like to get these out to as many people as possible. But I appreciate you taking the time to check this out today. And hopefully I get to see what you guys do with this project in the future. Thanks. Bye.